Let me be your loving teddy bear. Hold a chain around my neck. Leave me anywhere. Oh, let me be. Break your teddy bear.
What's up, guys? Welcome to this video on Elvis is the Man. So I was scrolling through YouTube the other day and I came across this clip of Mick Jagger talking about Elvis. And it's really rare that you see like anybody from the Rolling Stones talking about Elvis. Like we know about the Beatles and what Lennon said about Elvis. You know, before Elvis there was nothing, and that Elvis died after he got into the army. So many things about the Beatles and Elvis interaction, but the other big band in the 60s was the Rolling Stones, but we never hear anything about that. So I thought that was kind of intriguing from like one of my favorite bands, Mick Jagger, talking about Elvis. Listen to this clip here for a second, and then I'll come back and explain some more things about Elvis and the Rolling Stones.
I know from people who have known you for a very long period of time that you are extremely well-traveled, that you like a lot of people, and you enjoy getting to know people from all walks of life. I was wondering if I mentioned some names to you, what would be your first impression? Because these are people who affect us in all different kinds of ways. Elvis Presley.
Oh, beautiful, naive young man.
Now, that's how Elvis is described a lot by a lot of people, like a very sweet, naive type of guy, talented guy, but naive. You know, we know about how Parker used him, other people used him in Hollywood to make money. Elvis had his own desires and passions and interests, but he wasn't able to really do these things, you know, yada, 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 and we know the story. But it made me start thinking, like I said earlier in the video, you know, how can we never hear about, you know, the Rolling Stones and Elvis? And did Elvis really like the Rolling Stones? I mean, we know how he liked the Beatles. You know, he covered Yesterday, Hey Jude, you know, even messed around with like Lady Madonna in the studio. But what about, you know, the Rolling Stones and Elvis? Did any of them ever meet each other? And here's a couple clips I thought you might find interesting as I was researching this topic even more. Here's one from Keith Richards. You can tell that he definitely idolized Elvis, and just like a lot of these bands, like a lot of you don't even know Jimi Hendrix. He saw Elvis in 1957 and wanted to get into music because of Elvis. Elvis was the pioneer. Elvis was the one that all these people looked up to. So some maybe were jealous and hated on him. Others really idolized him and gave Elvis his props. Here's what Keith Richards has to say.
I guess they're the first white band that anybody heard of with a good lead singer that was saleable, that could actually play black, sound like black. They had the rhythm, they had the, you know, that fluidity which white music, especially then, didn't have. You know, I mean, it was very definitely meter, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whereas the beautiful thing I think about Elvis is that, well, he's just sort of turned everybody into everybody. He's not, it doesn't matter, you know, is the guy black or white anymore, you know, and maybe even you can do it.
And guys, you know, like Elvis never covered any Rolling Stones songs. I don't know of any time he's ever really even mentioned them. I don't think he was really a big fan. I'm sure he liked some of their stuff, but we know like Elvis really liked of the Beatles. What was that song? I Saw Her Standing There. I know that was one of his favorite songs, although he never covered it. I want to leave off this video with a quote from Mick Jagger in 1974. It's very, very rare. This is the first time I ever heard it. Like I said, you don't hear about the Rolling Stones and Elvis. You just hear about the Beatles and how the Beatles met with Elvis in '65 and that kind of stuff, and how they saw him at Madison Square Garden in '72. Here's a quote that I think you guys might find interesting from Rolling Stones. Now, this is from the website Rolling Stones Data. So Mick Jagger says, from 1974, he says, "I never really liked him," speaking of Elvis. "Presley hasn't got anyone to tell him what to do, and really that's what he needs more than anything. His trouble is that it is always a question of making money. So Elvis is still fantastically successful. Why? Because he makes money and he's made his comeback because of Tom Jones or whatever. Anyway, that's what I've been told. And, you know, so it seems, so this was 74. I mean, but who doesn't do it for money? Yeah, he does it because he loves to do it, but if there was no money in it, he'd have to do something else and maybe play, you know, on the weekends for fun, doing karaoke. And I scrolled down, I listened, and I read a few comments. I think you guys will think this is funny as I wrap up this video. So one comment is, Jagger, you are not good enough to polish Elvis Presley's army boots. Without him, there would have been no you. Moron, pathetic moron. That's, I mean, without Elvis, before Elvis there was nothing, and Elvis gave these people the inspiration to do what they did. And another one says, this is Raymond, he says, Mick, you could never sing worth a damn. Wonder why the Stones are still out here these days. Oh, it's because of the money, of course. So, you know, it looks like there was some hate, you know, along the lines at some point, but I thought you guys might find these, you know, interviews and clips interesting since they came across that Mick Jagger quote. I mean, Mick obviously looked up to Elvis in some way, thought he was handsome, thought he was naive. I thought, you know, from 1964, 10 years before that quote, that little clip there, that black and white clip of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards kind of goofing around, not making fun of Elvis, but they were like imitating him, having a good time. You can tell that they've obviously listened to some Elvis records. That Mick Jagger one, he was like mixing Treat Me Nice with Santa Claus is Back in Town or whatever he did. But anyway, I hope you guys found this video interesting. Any video requests, put them in the comments down below. I like to see what videos you kind of like most. Leave a like, it helps to grow and expand the channel. We'll talk to you guys next time.